Your alternative talk radio contact, The Planet, KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Welcome to another edition of Into the Fray. First, thanks for being here. If you enjoy ITF, please rate and review it in Apple Podcasts. This helps others find it, which turns into more people with encounters for me to interview. If you'd like more content than the free weekly edition, go to intothefrayradio.com and click Become an Insider. It's only $4.99 a month or $54 for an entire year. And if you have an encounter you'd like to share, email me at shannon@intothefrayradio.com. If you've got shorter stories, feel free to call the hotline, 877-317-9111. You can call that anytime, toll free. My first book, Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, co-authored with best-selling author G. Michael Hopf, is available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle editions. Once you're finished, please take a moment to leave a rating and review. For signed and personalized copies, send $19.99 via PayPal, free shipping within the U.S. only, to beyondthefrayllc@gmail.com. Besides Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, we now have Beyond the Fray Paramalgamation up for pre-order on Amazon right now. As hinted in the title, of course, it is paranormal stories. All kinds of them. It is an amalgamation. They are extremely difficult to classify in any one category of the paranormal. What is wonderful about this book, it is some of my favorites from the show, plus many will be included that you will have not heard on the show. And if you have any encounters that you'd like in an upcoming volume of Beyond the Fray, shoot me an email, shannon@intothefrayradio.com, or you can even just open your smartphone, talk into any kind of recording app, and email me that file. Be as detailed as you can in your story, of course. Any questions? Again, just email me, shannon@intothefrayradio.com. And last but not least, Geoff and I have created Beyond the Fray Publishing. So, if you've got a book you'd like us to publish for you, send us an email at info@beyondthefraypublishing.com. For general questions and information on us, visit our website, beyondthefraypublishing.com. Books we consider will need to be in the genres cryptid, paranormal, or true crime, both fiction and nonfiction. Thanks again, and that will do it for now. So, on to the show. No, so we thought it was high time to finally, officially introduce you to the Into the Fray listeners. So everyone, G, everyone. Okay, there you go. Goodbye. Have a nice day. There we go. And we're done.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. No, everybody, this is G. Michael Hopf. Of course, first name is Geoff, spelled with a G. That's where the G comes from. And as you guys know, he and I have teamed up. We've written a book that is already out, Beyond the Fray Bigfoot. We have another one, Beyond the Fray Paramalgamation, which we will discuss as far as release and things like that. We have a few other announcements, and of course, we started together a publishing company called Beyond the Fray. So, Geoff, officially, welcome on into the fray.
Well, hey, thanks for having me, Shannon. This is great. I guess everyone doesn't know, but before Shannon and I kind of teamed up to do the books, I was also a big fan of her show. So it's an honor to be here.
No, but so, Geoff, your space is, prior to working with me and we produce Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, your space is post-apocalyptic fiction and Western fiction, right? Like that's where you usually are living when you're writing something.
Yeah. I started out, the long and short of it is actually my very first book back in 2011 was a children's illustrated book, but that's a whole nother world about 100 years ago. But the space that I'm known in as a writer is apocalyptic fiction and now even Western, cowboy fiction. So the post-apocalyptic stuff I write, I don't do zombies and things like that. I do more kind of reality-based apocalyptic stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's only just for the basis because I've always been fascinated by kind of the what if scenarios. If A happens, then B are the people, how do they respond? C creates the apocalypse, right? So again, I've always just been fascinated by human nature, what people do when a certain event occurs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so all the books that I've got out there that are kind of apocalyptic based are all around some sort of reality-based apocalypse happening, whether that's an EMP, some kind of grid down scenario, some kind of a pandemic, coronavirus, everybody, things along that line. It's not to say that I don't like the zombie genre. I think it's kind of a fun space to be in, but I just don't really know if there's a real reality base behind it. I think what makes people kind of more frightened when they read my books. A side note, by the way, I guess apocalyptic fiction falls under horror, by the way, as like a subcategory.
I didn't know
when
that.
I spoke at Comic-Con a few years ago, I was on a panel and it was called The Art of Fear. And apparently they had all these different kinds of apocalyptic, right? But they had horror on there and vampires and all that kind of stuff. The kind of stuff like Stephen King would write. But apocalyptic fiction is actually featured under horror. And it's because what does it actually do to the reader? It actually scares them. It terrifies them. They don't know exactly what to deal with. And when you look at reality-based apocalypse, scenarios, it is frightening because you're looking at your everyday life completely being disrupted, and your life or your family's life is actually truly threatened. And there's a lack of uncertainty about what's going to happen. So you can see where that the apocalyptic genre would fit into horror because it does truly terrify people. And when I started writing the reality-based stuff, I was getting a ton of response from the books, from readers saying that's how the book scared them straight, scared them to start preparing, scared them to start doing something or being more proactive just in the event if there was a grid down scenario, if there was a pandemic, they would be prepared with the resources, skill sets, knowledge, et cetera, to survive the situation.
Now, you brought up, of course, the coronavirus. That fits right in. Every time I'm checking my phone for the latest news, there's another state with an outbreak here in the country. So to you, you're well-versed in things like EMPs and, grid down scenarios. Do you think that kind of situation is scarier or what we're dealing with the coronavirus possibly hitting every state in the U.S.?
Well, me personally, I've always been more terrified of a pandemic, only because I can't see my enemy, so to speak. I can't see the virus. And again, this is just my own personal take. Like viruses do scare me because it also, you're specifically when it comes down to my kids. I've never been more terrified in my life than when I had kids. Yeah. Like now, I'm truly scared for them. Not this. You can do anything to me. It's my kids I worry about. They're innocent, right? And they're out in the world, and when they catch a virus, it's very difficult for you to do anything about it. If it's a grid down scenario, you're looking at, it'd be very troubling time to experience some kind of an EMP attack where the grid's down for an extended period of time. You're not having to deal with something that's unknown or unseen. And I think that viruses personally just scare me, specifically if it's something that if you get it, there's a high immortality rate. As it pertains to kind of this coronavirus going on, as more and more data comes out, I do feel bullish that I don't think it's some kind of end of the world scenario. Do I think it could cause disruptions? Yeah, it's going to cause supply chain interruptions. It's going to cause our everyday life to have some issues. Again, everyone's not going to die. We do have a great healthcare system in the Western world, so to speak. Again, the problems you're going to see is, again, a disruption of supply chain, a disruption of things here and there of the everyday life. If that's the big thing, if it becomes widespread, if it becomes as widespread as the flu, yeah, we'll definitely going to have some issues because it'll burden the system that's already in place.
Yeah, did you see that family of four? A mother, a father, he's a lawyer in a big law firm in New York State, and then the kids are in their 20s, so they both went to, basically college-type schools or tech schools or something. So those schools are shut down now, and of course they're trying to just contain that circle and that bubble and now test anybody that's come into contact, including the guy's neighbor drove him to the hospital, and now he's got it. So I don't know if he just didn't realize what he was driving him to the hospital for, or if they just didn't take proper precautions. But now the neighbor's got it too. So,
well, yeah, and therein lies kind of the problem. The media itself doesn't help at all in some regards. But what's happened, because I wrote a blog post on this last week about, as far as the media is like that boy who cried wolf. Like anytime something comes out, anytime there's some kind of virus, they literally make it. They cry about it as if it's the worst thing that's ever going to happen. And a lot of people take a notice. And now there is potentially something that could cause some major disruption and problems. And a lot of people aren't listening. And I'm actually finding it even like on prepper sites and survivalist sites where people say that this is like practically fake news. There isn't anything to be concerned about. And I take issue with that as well. I think everyone should always be prepared. And one, I think being prepared is nothing. It's like having an insurance policy. It's all it is. Everyone has, health insurance, car insurance. Some people have life insurance. Having resources and skill sets and knowledge and so forth, it's nothing but an insurance policy to make sure that you can take care of your family in case there's an emergency. I mean, history is riddled with problems and issues that arise and society can't tackle, or there's massive disruptions. It's only the past 50 years or half a century where preparedness has now become some kind of thing where it's like you're looked down upon, eye rolls.
You're like a nutcase.
So I know, and the fact is that's not even everybody used to be prepared, because you can't rely upon the government to take care of you. It's actually not their responsibility to either. But the thing about the coronavirus is, again, I don't think it's going to go out and wipe everybody out, but it is a highly contagious disease. It's in fact, again, I'm just looking at data that's through the CDC. It's very contagious. Now, again, it only tends to be, killing people that already have kind of pre-existing kind of conditions, already have health issues. Then it becomes a problem. But where it becomes a bigger problem from a societal standpoint is the actual disruption of services. So say, for instance, it becomes as widespread as the flu. They do know about 20 to 15% of those people that have it will have to go to the emergency room, right? So then you go to the emergency room, and then a certain percentage of them will have to be admitted to the ICU. Well, there's only so many ICU beds in the country, in your neighborhood, in your city. So if you have it become as widespread as the flu, at the same time the flu season is happening, it'll become a massive strain on the healthcare system. You'll see the system start to break down, essentially. And so all ICU beds will be occupied. If someone has an accident, they try to get into the hospital, there's no beds. So that's the biggest problem we have, is just from an infrastructure standpoint and a supply chain issue. It's coming at a really bad time.
And, before we get off the coronavirus situation, I haven't read much. I've only read one thing, and I wanted to see if you had seen anything on this. I've only read one thing about what it actually makes you feel like. And you're not hearing a whole lot about that. And one thing I read, and I wanted to run this by you, I read that if you get the coronavirus, it's like having basically a pretty bad case of pneumonia. And that's if you get a mild version of the coronavirus. But I don't know if that's at all true.
Again, there's a lot of information out there. It's funny, we live in the information age, but God, I think people are more ignorant now than they've ever been. But because the information is so spotty, I just tend now to lean on what the CDC and the National Institute of Health say. Again, I just use them as my baseline because again, you can pull up any article and I don't know what they're sourcing it from. And that's the problem. There's just so much information on the web, on social media. So when I've looked at what the CDC is talking about, it pretty much says that anyone that becomes infected with it, about 80% of the people are going to experience mild symptoms. It's going to be like a cold or like a flu, but a mild case of the flu. It's the 20% that it's going to impact them greatly. And then the 15% are going to the hospital, into the ICU. And that's because it goes to like full-blown pneumonia. So this coronavirus, COVID-19, is essentially like a viral pneumonia is what it is. It burrows deep into your lungs and causes those kinds of issues. So people that already have compromised cardiovascular systems and the elderly and things like that. This is why it's so damaging. I mean, the people that are dying in Washington State, it somehow got into a nursing home. And so now you've got, the elderly, they're already compromised, health issues. That's why you've got 9 dead up there.
Right.
And so I've not read anything where if you just get it, it's going to be like a bad pneumonia. I think, again, what I've read from the CDC and the National Institutes of Health is that 80% of people will contract it. They won't even know they even have it because it'll feel like a bad cold, or it might feel like like a mild case of the flu. And most people don't go to the hospital when they have a mild case of the flu. They try to stay home. And they try to kind of nurse that, right? And if it is the coronavirus, then you're probably, because you're thinking it's just a cold, you're still probably out and about in your community doing whatever you're doing, spreading this coronavirus now.
Yeah, there was a lady, it was just 2 days ago, and I was in Walmart, and we're walking, both of our carts kind of, are on the same path, and she gets in front of me, and she just starts to hack and cough without covering anything, and I'm just like, are you serious? Like, with everything going on, and you just kind of stop and book it the other way. You're like, you jerk, you a-hole.
It was so funny. Was it on the last week? It was Friday. Last Friday, I was in the local Target here, and our local Target has like a grocery store, and it has like this liquor section. I'm in there perusing the whiskeys, looking at them, and somebody in the other aisle is just hacking, like they're losing a lung. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm out. And I'm rushing down, and it's like right next to the liquor aisle is where like all the disinfectants and all. I come by bleach wipes. I throw a bunch of bleach wipes in the cart. Check out. I get in my vehicle. I'm like bathing myself in bleach wipes. Oh, it was like horrendous. And my wife's like, "Where's the whiskey?" I'm like, I had to get out of there.
You're like, I was licking bleach wipes in the car and wiping my eyeballs down with them. Yeah, it's funny. If you get on Amazon right now, they're sold out of hand sanitizer, and so is Walmart for the most part. You can't get any hand sanitizer from Amazon. It's weird. That would have been me. But the whiskey's also very important. I mean, I would have been like, your wife would have been like, dude, where's the good stuff? You're like, look.
Where's the booth? That's a disinfectant.
Yeah. Howard Stern was on talking, of course, about coronavirus, and said that his daughter works in healthcare, and they had this memo go out from a virologist. And the virologist brought up like zinc lozenges that, but you're supposed to like, hold the lozenge in your mouth as long as you can, lay it down flat so that the lozenge is coating the back of your throat, because they're claiming that the second you feel sick, just like a laryngitis or the cold, it'll start a lot of times in your throat. You get that scratch, that if you can knock it out there, then you're not going to get the coronavirus. And, zinc lozenges are sold. I'm like, Howard Stern is a powerful man, because he was talking about that 3 days ago, and now you got hand sanitizer gone, zinc lozenges you can't find online or in the stores. I'm like, that's a powerful dude right there. Anyway, okay, so let's do some announcements for our publishing company. Maybe should we start? Do you want to start with our books, or did you want to start with some upcoming books with some other folks that we have on board now?
Well, let's kind of just talk about kind of our books right now, because I think that's exciting, and that's kind of how our relationship kind of started anyway. It started with the Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, which I think is done incredibly well, and I want to thank everyone out there that's read it, and especially those who have read it and left reviews. Reviews, it means a lot, so thank you guys so much. That's a book I'm very proud of. Of all the books, I've written, it's one of the top that I'm very, very proud of, getting out and working on, and especially working with you. It was a lot of fun. So that book is out, and again, I still think it's like an Amazon bestseller out there. It's doing really well. And then we've got the second one coming out. I swear it's like a tongue twister. Paramalgamation.
Yes.
So that will be I have to pause for a second before I say it.
That's okay. I usually cannot say post-apocalyptic. It comes out so stupid when I say it. See, and I did it twice in one show. I'm not going to say it again because I will not get it the third time. That was weird that I just was able to do that. So we all have those words.
Post-apocalyptic messes everybody up too, just like paramalgamation.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Paramalgamation, yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay, good. So
it's the same.
So I'm excited about that one as well, because I just love this collection of all these different kind of encounters, eyewitness encounters and so forth, that are kind of coming together under one cover. And I know it's up for pre-order right now if anyone wants to get it. And I know it's set to release at the end of April. But it's looking like right now we could have a release of that weeks early. So I know, like, pay attention into the fray on social media, et cetera, like that. Like, look for those dates to change and have an early release of that book. And I'm sure the readers out there, your fans, will really appreciate that. And when Shannon and I kind of started this, it wasn't just to do kind of one book or two books. It was to create an entire series of books focusing on different types of topics, kind of the umbrella of the paranormal. And so you couldn't have a Beyond the Fray series that deals in the paranormal without having one that deals with UFOs. And so we're going to be having one of the UFOs coming out, probably around in the summertime, late summer. And then we've been talking, because everyone loves a good Bigfoot story, or big cryptid story. So probably going to have a second Bigfoot coming out maybe later in the year, possibly maybe into the early 2021. But that's kind of our schedule for the Beyond the Fray books, our series specifically.
Yeah, and part of that, guys, is something that Geoff and I felt was very important, obviously, is not to have the books 100% regurgitated from the show. Obviously, it's a completely different way to consume the content, and I thank all those who have admitted, like, they knew the stories, but to actually read them, it was a different way to experience these encounters. But a big part of it is that we want stories that either, A, you don't feel comfortable enough coming on to talk with me. I know I'm extremely intimidating, and I can be a huge ass and grill people when they're on here. No, not really. But maybe you don't want to come on the show, or, maybe you'd rather just email it, type it out, or, as I say in the intro every single time, just record it into your phone or something, and then you can email it to me, Shannon@intothefrayradio.com. But we are looking for stories that will not be housed on the podcast at all, because let's face it, we got to have some surprises in there for folks, especially those that are diehard Into the Fray listeners. They appreciate that kind of thing. So, as Geoff just mentioned, so Paramalgamation is obviously, we're closed for stories for that, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to have a second edition of Paramalgamation coming up in the next couple of years. So UFOs now is what we're going to turn our attention to once Para gets wrapped here pretty soon. So if you guys have any stories, please get in touch with me. And of course, I will continue to take the encounters on the show and make it part of the Beyond the Fray. I mean, that's where it was born from to begin with. So that will continue down the road. But you guys know that, UFOs, that's not my wheelhouse. I kind of do the Bigfoot and the paranormal stuff more than anything. So obviously I need to start branching out a little bit more into what's above us in the skies. And that only makes sense because of the On the Trail UFOs that's going to come out here next month as well. So March 20th. And okay, so with all of
that seems like a natural fit. I mean, that may not be in your wheelhouse, but it's kind of in your wheelhouse now.
It is.
You've got On the Trail of UFOs coming out, and that looks really, really good. I mean, just the trailers I've seen that Seth has put out I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Like I told you, he put out this really cool trailer the other day, and he's posting it around, and he shared it with us, and he's like, I was bored, just threw that together. I'm like, dude, it looked amazing. You're just bored and threw that together. If I tried to do that, because I obviously do a slight tiny bit of video editing I did for Insider after I went to Fox Hollow Farm, there is nothing more a pain in the ass, and that will make you just want to scalp yourself and pull your hair out more than video editing. So for him to just go, I was bored, just threw it together, I was like, holy crap, dude, that is a man that knows his craft. So I love when you see people's talent just really come out, and it looks, I mean, again, the trailers just look amazing. He's already got his past work. This is going to be so awesome. And we've hit the stretch goal, which means we're going to be producing the Lake Michigan Mothman. So, mic drop on that. A huge congrats to Seth and STM, of course. So awesome. And Amber, thanks for, kicking down money on the Kickstarter. You guys are going to get some really great extras if you threw down on the Kickstarter. It's still live at this moment, by the way. I don't know how many hours is left, but it may be done by this time this airs Thursday tomorrow. So we'll see. All right. The next part of our announcements, before we talk to Geoff about some experiences at Point Lookout State Park in Maryland, is we have a couple of authors that you guys out there are going to be very, very interested to know that we've signed them on to under our Beyond the Fray Publishing House umbrella. And it's everything that you guys want as far as staying in the genres that we like here on Into the Fray. And Geoff, I will let you do the honors to announce who those two gentlemen are that we have recently brought under our umbrella.
Yeah, when we started this endeavor, together, putting our own books, the idea just came, what we're doing, why don't we just, the thing is, like, I've always struggled as a writer. There's only one of me, or there's only one of you. There's only so much content that we can put out. And since we're already doing it, why don't we just take the resources we have and the expertise we have as far as, putting books out, editing, et cetera, all the things that go into publishing, and then open that up to people in this space. So they can find a home if they've got a book that, again, falls under the paranormal and so forth. And that was kind of the birth of Beyond the Fray Publishing. Again, this is a separate thing that's outside of the Beyond the Fray book series. By the way, we created two imprints. It's Beyond the Fray Publishing and Doomsday Press. We can talk about Doomsday Press another time, but we've officially can announce we've got two authors already in contract. Your names you're gonna know. We've got Ken Gerhard, I think that's how you pronounce his name. And we're going to be publishing the ebook version of his Essential Guide to Bigfoot. And then we've got Steve Stockton, I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of as well. And we've got a couple of books that we're going to be doing for him. So you can look for those books to be coming out sometime in the spring. And so we're really, really, really excited about it.
Yeah, we're moving forward full steam ahead with this, and we are so excited that you guys can all kind of come on the journey with us, because especially if you're a weekly listener to Into the Fray, obviously you're going to hear the news for things like this first, for early releases and pre-orders and some of the exciting things that we're going to have coming up just this year alone. So those are some of our big announcements. Anything to add to that, Geoff, before we move on?
No, not really.
All right. Well, see, short and sweet. Gotta love it. We said everything we need to say. Peace out.
I can keep rambling. Trust me, I can keep rambling.
Believe me, he gets me stuck on the phone for hours, people. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. Hold on. Let me shut this door. Hercules is starting to pop off. And then my daughter is texting me, going, "Hey, Mom, the fire alarm is going off. This is not a drill. If I don't make it out, I love you." Like, what the hell, girl? What the That's what she texts me. I'm like, really? And then she goes, "Oh, never mind. It looks like it was a false alarm." You little monkey. God bless America. These kids
are so drama.
If I don't make it out, I love you. I am going to screenshot that for blackmail later for her. My goodness. All right. So I looked up Point Lookout State Park, and I don't know why I assumed, because you were in California, that this place was in California. Point Lookout, I thought, a lighthouse situation, which it is, but it's on the other side of the country. This is in Maryland, and it's kind of looks like a cool place, because they've actually, they've got a Civil War museum, and then, of course, the lighthouse, thus Point Lookout State Park, and then they've got a hunting area, which it looks like it's almost like 300 acres set aside just for hunting, right?
I'm actually not familiar with the hunting space. Maybe the area is expanded. I know when I was there, so I'm originally from Maryland. I've only been a Californicator for about 20-some years. So I grew up in Maryland, and, there's a lot of history on back east. You've got, specifically when it comes to the Civil War. It's like on the East Coast, everywhere you go, there's always some kind of, sign or something, or statue or whatever, denoting some kind of battle or whatnot that relates to the American Civil War. And Point Lookout itself was about a half an hour from where I grew up, and it's now a state park, but it was known for during the Civil War as a Confederate prison camp. So the United States ran a prison camp, like the Confederates had a prison camp, like the famous one's called Andersonville. I think the Confederates, I think that was down in Georgia, and that's where they housed a lot of Union soldiers. Or Point Lookout was a Union prison camp where they held Confederate prisoners. And it's just a very small peninsula. It's essentially where kind of the Potomac River, anyone back east from the Potomac River kind of flows past Washington, D.C. And if you follow it south, it flows out into the Chesapeake Bay. So it's a peninsula, and on the point is a lighthouse, clearly. But I think in total cannot remember off the top of my head the actual acreage. I do know at one time there was like 11,000 Confederate prisoners housed there. Of that, over 50% died because of just disease and pestilence and dysentery, you name it. It was just the conditions for the prisoners was just horrible. You know, not on par with like Andersonville and the kind of notoriety that prison camp has, but a lot of men died in a very small area. And in a sense, it's just a hotbed for paranormal activity. And my oldest brother, John, worked as a ranger. He worked for the Department of Natural Resources, and he worked down at Point Lookout. And after I graduated, and by the way, he's always been fascinated with the paranormal as myself, just always just fascinated. He's got a ton of cool stories because he's worked there. He worked at Lake Mead for a period of time when he went to the feds. And then he ended up, so out there he's working like undercover narcotics.
Wow. Oh.
But then out Lake Mead, where you kind of close to where you are.
Yeah.
And then he finished his career, did like 15 years with Independence Hall out in Philly. And lots of creepy stuff going in there too, by the way. So when he was working down there, he was telling me all these like crazy stories, all these kind of like, you know, things missing, door slamming, apparitions, all kinds of stuff happening down there. And I was like, I want to check this out. So he ended up giving me a job. I was working kind of like at kind of the registration for campers because there's a big campground there. Mm-hmm. And so I typically was working there in the day, but then the way the staffing worked, they ended up putting me on at night. But I can go on, and the long and short of it is like I lived on Point Lookout at the same time. This was the summer of 1988. And I actually lived there because my brother lived. It was like an old like brick home that was right, probably a good stone's throw from the Potomac River. That's where I lived. My brother lived, and another ranger lived. And I remember, God, my first encounter there, like I just moved in. I was like sleeping on a cot, and we're sitting down there, we're just having a beer, and like the front door just opens by itself. And the other ranger that we lived with, Jamie, his dog, I think his dog was named Roscoe, like jumped up and started growling at something. And then the dog backed up, his hair was up, and the dog growled, and the dog now turned its head, was looking at the couch in between me and my brother. Oh. And I was like, what's going on? And my brother was like, and my brother John and Jamie are like, oh, it's nothing. We just got a visitor. I'm like, what? He's like, yep. And Roscoe's growling, and then you can see Roscoe's head move, and then the door made a little bit of a move, the front door, and then that was it. That was like my first experience to like, what the hell is going on here? Like, this stuff is real. And God, there's like so many things. Like I would come home and like doors would slam all the time in this place. Lights would turn on and off, you know, that kind of activity. The creepiest one was I was working nights, and I was sent down to go clean the beach because there were two beaches there. The one on the Potomac side, they opened up to the public. It was like a sand beach. People could come and hang out. So they had like a beach there a beach house that had like showers and things and bathrooms and whatnot. I was sent down there one night. There was one ranger on night shift, and I also worked at registering campers, but at midnight, no one was registering. So he would come and get me and take me down to go kind of do the duties he didn't want to do. And that was cleaning, you know, the toilets and shit like that. Right.
Right.
So yeah, he goes, I'm going to drop you off here, and then I'll be back in an hour. I'm like, where are you going? He goes, you got the radio, just call me. Now I know why he didn't want to go to this beach house. So I got the keys. I go in, and it's kind of separated like the use. When you walk in the front door, you're looking at a wall. If you go right and then you go left, you've got like these little shower stalls. And then they were like changing stalls, really. They weren't showers. And then if you go left and you go right, again, it's like shaped like a U. You've then got like the toilet stalls. And then in the center, if you followed it all the way around, in the center was a big open like community shower area. And so I walked in, got the cleaning supplies, and I was cleaning the toilets. I hear the front door open, and I lift my head up. I'm thinking it's, you know, Mike. His name is Mike Brown, was the ranger. I'm thinking it's Mike, and then I call out for him. Nothing. Then I hear it sounds like hard sole crunching on sand, because it was like a tile floor, right? Mm-hmm. On the opposite side where the changing stalls were. I'm like, so I can audibly hear somebody walking on the other side. I keep calling out, nothing. I walk over there, and there's nobody there. And of course, like right out of a horror movie, I'm like, pulling the drapes over to these chains and like, what am I doing? This is stupid. No one's here. I'm hearing stuff, right?
Right.
And so I go back and I start cleaning the toilet again. And then I felt this heavy presence, like somebody was pushing down on me from behind me. It's the weirdest sensation I've ever felt in my life. Like somebody was right looking over my left shoulder at me. It was like inches from my face. All I did, I froze. I just slowly just started turning my head. And I mean, the feeling that someone was there somebody was there, but somebody wasn't. I turned around, there was nobody there, but I was like, I'm out of here. I threw the stuff into kind of the little locker room area, like locked up, and I got on the radio. I called Mike. So you need to come get me. He rolls in there. I jump in the patrol car and goes, what happened? I'm like, man, that's why I don't go down here. That's why I put you down here. I was like, I'm not doing this again, man.
Did you guys?
I don't clean I don't clean those toilets, man.
Well, I mean, after that though, what do you do? Draw straws to see who's going to clean it now? Because now you're indoctrinated into why he doesn't go in that damn place.
No, I would just I never cleaned it again. I never went down there ever again. And Mike never cleaned them. He never cleaned them, but it was part of their duty to do it. And what's interesting is another night he sent me to like this all happened at night. So another time on my night shift, he sent me to like the main offices, and I was like waxing the floor, like the waxing buffering machine, and like waxing the floors. And I just got this, my brother had mentioned that there's a file in there on like paranormal activity. And it's in like the main files, like in the main like office area. So I'm like snooping around. And I just opened the thing, and there it was. There was a big, thick file, and it was labeled Paranormal Activity.
Wow.
I think it was like Paranormal Activity at the park. And it was just one incident report after another of campers and people at the park seeing things or experiencing things.
What were they seeing? Like apparitions or other things?
Some people would see apparitions, see people. There was a case. There's photographs in there too. There were photographs in there as well. There was photographs of when there were seances and things done at like the Lighthouse.
Oh boy! And
there was an apparition of like a Confederate soldier or soldier like in that period uniform. Mm-hmm. All you see is from the waist up. Photographs of orbs, in the air. There was one photograph that I've seen. I think this is, you actually look this up, where they're photographing from Point Lookout up in the lighthouse area, up in the very top where the light is, photographing north. So you see the Potomac River beach on the left and the Chesapeake Bay on the right. And you see a little boy, like, I think leaning against a tree. He wasn't in the photograph when it was taken. And you see a woman like in white walking on the beach. And that was the notorious woman in white that was seen a lot there. My brother claimed to have seen her walking. He saw her on the beach and followed her. And then she walked into those bathrooms. That beach house. Mm. He walked in there and there was nobody in there. And I think those photographs you can actually find, like you can go in and check out Point Lookout. Just type in like Point Lookout State Park ghosts. I guarantee a treasure trove of stuff will pop up.
I wonder where that file is now.
I'm sure it's probably still there. And what's interesting is that Leonard Nimoy, from when he did that show In Search Of, did a show on Point Lookout where they were in the lighthouse. They were doing a seance or whatever, and like they'd gather around in a circle kind of a thing. That was done, I think, in like collaboration with the show. But I think Leonard Nimoy did In Search Of show on Point Lookout.
I'll have to see if I can find that on YouTube. I bet most of those are on there. Maybe I can link that for folks.
It's a hotbed for paranormal activity. Like my brother told me another encounter where he was like on nights and he see an old lantern just walking, like the lantern just moving along, like one of the roads, and it just disappears. Another one, I used to get my brother on. He's got just a million of these. And then when he was down there living in another house on the park itself, that there was a bunch of tapping on the window. And what was strange is that the window was like 2 stories high. So he was getting this knock. He was sleeping on the couch, and someone was knocking on the door. And he kept going out there and thinking it was just probably some kids from the campground, just being, ding door dash or whatever, just knocking on the door and running away. Then he comes back and lays back on the couch, and then someone starts tapping on the window. He doesn't think much of it. He runs outside. He flashes the light, and the window, of course, is like 20 feet off the ground. He's like, okay.
Nope. Nope. I mean, did that
And then
stuff freak
time,
him out to where or did he kind of enjoy it? Like, it was kind of cool to him.
it would, it's that sensation. It's like I become more fascinated by it, but at the moment you're experiencing it, it's scary, right?
Right.
It's like you feel out of place. There's something very intimidating about it, but at the same time, you kind of want to experience it again. Like had that sensation of someone like leaning over me. I mean, like I could feel their presence there. And while it scared me so much that like I got the hell out of there, there was still kind of this exhilaration about the entire thing.
Geoff, did you feel like that was
packed up my stuff and left?
Right. But because I mean, we've heard about the heavy presence feeling before, but did you feel like that was a human presence, or was it something else?
To me, it felt like it was a human presence, like someone's there. I mean, I wouldn't know what are you thinking like some kind of a demonic presence?
Just anything else besides I mean, that's a hard thing to label, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that would even, I mean, I would just say it felt like someone was there. So when I say someone, so I guess it would feel like a person was there.
Right.
And yeah, and again, it was, what's interesting about it is sometimes you have the theories, right, where people talk about ghosts are just kind of these little snapshots of time, or there's so much energy that's happening in a space that people are just, it's like repeating itself on a loop kind of thing. But this one had a sense of like, it knew I was there. Like, what was it leaning over looking at me for? Like, like that's not part of its kind of historical loop of what it's replaying. Although there are some recordings, my brother had them, where the recordings were, they're like, you hear like Union officers talking, and then one guy says fire, and they link that to probably like they're executing some prisoners. Yeah, there's some audio. There's definitely some the EVPs, right? There's some EVPs from there. I've heard this fascinating stuff. You can hear one is like someone like the old man who used to work in the Lighthouse, I think in the 1880s. You hear him a lot up there. The Lighthouse has a lot of crazy negative energy in it. My brother's been in there a few times and just says it's really heavy.
It seems
really
like
dark.
With lighthouses, you hear a lot of suicides around lighthouses. Like, what kind of stories are around that lighthouse?
I don't know of any suicides. Not to say that there wasn't. What's interesting is I don't know why it has that reputation. What's interesting though is that it's now used as like the United States Navy owns that property. They like the state of Maryland owns the park, but that little tip of the peninsula where the lighthouse is like a tracking station by the Navy. There's like 2 different sets of barbed wire, razor wire, you name it. Like you can't gain access to it at all. But I don't know if there's ever been anything like that in there. I mean, I can find out and, send you an email and some updates on it. But I think it's pretty easy. You can Google Point Lookout Lighthouse hauntings. I know a bunch of stuff will pop up.
So besides the prison camp where you said it had like a 50-50 mortality rate, which is extremely high, where else in that park would people expire? I mean, obviously there's accidents in every park, but is there, how far from, like where you felt that heavy presence in that home, how far from the actual prison camp would that have been from where all those people died?
Right there. Pretty much right. Not far at all. Oh, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
That
it's
probably
not
makes
far
sense.
at all. I mean, yeah, because we're like, what's interesting, there's an old fort there, I think it's called Fort Lincoln, and you can still see the remnants. Now they've done some rehab to the fort, but the fort still is pretty much there, and that's where a lot of the Union soldiers were encamped. But just on the outskirts of Fort Lincoln is where the prisoners were just living in tents, essentially. It was like a big, massive tent city. That's where the prisoners were, and it's all over there. And the reason they use that as the prison camp, my understanding, is because it was a peninsula. All they had to do was just, guard kind of the north end of the peninsula, and there's no other place for the prisoners to go. And to swim across the Potomac, it's like 2 to 3 miles wide. The Potomac is at that. It's like the mouth of the Potomac, and the bay is like 20 some miles wide. So there was no place for the prisoners to go except north, and then there they had a big picket line. So that's why they chose it as an ideal location. They didn't have to throw a lot of manned resources there to house the prisoners. But it was a big encampment that housed like 11,000 people.
Isn't it funny, though, the difference in the presences? Like the one that walked up on you when you were cleaning versus the one that just let itself in your front door where you guys were actually living. And then obviously we're kind of hinting that it just walked and sat down between you guys on the couch. And the dog is looking at it, which makes you want to be able to communicate with dogs and go, what are you seeing, Roscoe? What do you see?
Yeah, so that's something, though, I've wondered. Are animals just sensing it, or are they actually seeing it?
Right.
You know, I've often wondered that. But does Roscoe sense something? I mean, the hair was up on the dog. Dog was backing up, looking at something. But the times I was there, I never experienced, anything trying to hurt me. Again, just a lot of door movement, footsteps, those sorts of things. Again, come back. I mean, I can't tell you how many times a door would slam. Or we had like a receiver, like a big stereo system and a receiver in the radio, and the station would constantly change. Frequencies would constantly change. It was ridiculous. I didn't listen to the radio.
See, now that would be more along my vein of acceptable for a home haunting versus, the old hag sitting on your chest or seeing a little naked demon thing, in the corner, and you're trying to throw your stuffy animals at it, shit like that can stay away. Your situation at you guys' place seemed a little bit better, but was that like a every night, every day kind of a thing where it got almost hard to sleep because you're hearing people walk around or doors opening or lights coming on and off?
It was more of a nuisance thing, yes. And there was nothing ever that I experienced, and it happened like a lot. You could probably say it was almost daily. There was something occurring, very small little things. Refrigerator door would be open. Like I remember one time I came home. I did some day shift for some reason, and I came home and the refrigerator door was open and like food was on the floor.
See, that would be annoying.
Like, what the hell's going on?
That'd be annoying.
So yeah, it was more annoying. It's like, but what is that all about? And so that was the thing. We were like, what's going like? That doesn't sound like it's a spirit that's reliving some kind of a traumatic past. That seems like something it's interfering with the present day.
Right.
And that's where I don't understand, because I know there's competing. You probably know this better than I do. There's a competing theory about, like, is it an intelligent presence, meaning it's there, it acknowledges us, right? Versus just something that's just a loop,
right? Like
kind
a
of
movie
just repeating itself over and over,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was a movie playing, it wouldn't get in your fridge and throw shit all over the place.
Yeah, there was just stuff all over the floor. I know.
How long were you guys there for in that particular home?
I was there, I think it was called, I'm trying to think of the name of that little, I think it was called the dorm, I can't remember the actual name of that little, it was a little house. It wasn't very big. Single level, pretty much like an open floor plan kind of a thing. We had a partition with like wall lockers. And I was there for 3.5 months, from I graduated in May all the way till like September. So that's when I was there. And then my brother worked down there. God, he was there for years. So he had the number of encounters he had it's just unbelievable.
You should have the other Hopf hit me up. I would love to have him on to chat with him.
Oh, he could tell you some great stuff too from Independence Hall as well.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. And don't you wonder sometimes if you're like, if I had, the knowledge that I do now, and if we had the technology that we do now, I'd love to be able to go back and, you could maybe get some video or, get even better EVPs and things like that, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, what's interesting is I got into doing a lot of EVP stuff with a friend because of all that. Everything I was experiencing in between, like the end of my working down there until I went in the Marine Corps, was about 6 months later. I ended up going in the Marine Corps. So me and a friend, David, his name was David Leggett, he also went in the Marine Corps later too. We were going around the different graveyards making EVPs, right? The Super Core EVPs were like super in the super cool to do. We had like these little micro cassette recorders. Again, this is 1988, and going to graveyards and just, of course, the scarier element was going there at night, right?
Of course.
Like this creates a creepy vibe, right? Because technically you should be able to get an EVP any time of the day, right?
Yeah, it's stronger at night, though, obviously. It's clearer.
I guess. I mean, we always just went because it's just creepy. Plus, we're two kids running around these old graveyards. And that's what's kind of cool about back east, because you'll have these graveyards at like these old Catholic churches or old Methodist churches, and The one we went, St. John's Parish, was like they had graves that dated back to the late 1600s and early 1700s. So part of the graveyard, this is a very old parish. And so, I mean, there's a lot of old graveyards all throughout Southern Maryland. And so we'd go there. We got a ton of stuff. I've got them all on micro cassette. And like, I remember the first thing we ever got on the EVP was we were walking into this graveyard, and then there's this voice. We didn't hear it with our own ears. We heard it later, told us to go away. And it's very clear, very loud. And it's like yelling at us, like, go away. But just a lot of interesting voices. One was kind of creepy. We got it on, but we had 2 recorders at one time. And there was a family plot where the little kids had died at the same time the parents did. So it must have been some kind of an accident or something occurred, right? We don't know the backstory on it. But I was looking at it first, and Dave was, he's probably a good 30, 40 feet away from me. But we got the children laughing. We could hear it audibly on my recorder, these children. Because what we would do is we typically just walk up to the gravestones, look at them, like read their names, when they were born, when they died, that kind of thing, right? Whatever was written on there. And if there's any kind of epitaph or whatnot. But I remember clearly on the tape hearing 2 children laughing. Dave's tape, you can hear them, but they sound more distant. So again, there's a presence or a location of where the voices are coming from. So I was next to the graves, much louder. He's further away. And so that it says that there's a proximity about spirits as well.
Right. What about Ouija boards? Did you guys ever utilize anything like that?
No, I'm not into the Ouija board thing.
No, you kind of you hear some bad stories. It kind of calls you off those things. I'll send you one.
Yeah.
We'll change that.
No.
You and the girls can use it.
No. No.
I can send it Amazon Prime right now. They may not have hand sanitizer, but by God, they're going to have a Ouija board. I'll tell you.
No, thank you. No. The reason is I think those things work.
Yeah.
I do. I think that they work. And I think it's just people need to be careful what they're tapping into. I really do. I think you're inviting something into your house. I do. I really believe that. If you're playing with them, you're utilizing them. I do. I know some people probably think that's hokey. It's just a cardboard thing or whatever and a little piece of plastic.
It's just the intent, right? I mean, you got the intent there.
I guess. I know we played with one all like when we were kids, and then my mom was like, "I don't think so," and she threw that away.
Was it you guys's or like a neighbor's or something?
Yeah, God, I'm trying to remember what it was. I remember we had it. Maybe it was, I think it was ours. I don't know where we got it. We were playing with it, and my mother caught wind of that, and that thing ended up in the trash. So
some people do believe if you screw with tarot cards, or some people think that using crystals is witchery or runes or whatever, Ouija boards, that you, like you said, you're inviting something in, and there could be a true darkness attached to that.
Yeah. The thing is, you don't know what you're bringing in. That's there is an unknown factor, and so it's kind of like this Russian roulette kind of concept, right? Yeah, you possibly could bring in something that's benevolent, but you could also bring in something that's not. And then once it's there, you do hear about things attaching to people, right? I know you've probably done plenty of show or heard of plenty of people that have attachments, right? These things like latch onto them like like a parasite, right? And so I don't know. What's interesting about like my EVP experience pretty much ended when Dave and I had a couple really bad experiences. And one was, there was this one grave at St. John's that I still remember her name. Her name was Rebecca S. Brooks. And I was reading it. And what's interesting is I don't stutter, but I started to stutter. I wish I could play these EVPs and clean them up because they're really good. I'm reading her name and I go, I can't say it. It's the weirdest thing. And this is me on the tape. Once I get it out, you hear this incredibly loud growl. It's louder than my voice. It's there on the tape. I don't know what it is. Now, what's interesting is this woman was never married. And of course, I think she was born in 1780, 79 or whatever. There's always that talk. Someone who's not not married. Maybe she's a witch. And there's all that kind of talk. This is the story we told ourselves. But it was so odd that we got that response on the tape. That's the EVP. It's very loud, louder than our own voices. and you slow it down, it's like a growl. Something's growling at us. So I don't know what that was. We ended up going to this other parish, and this is an old graveyard. It was like all overgrown with like vines and laurel and all this stuff. I mean, something right out of a horror movie, right? And we're kind of hacking our way, and we found these old gravestones, most of them knocked over. And we found this one. I think the woman's last name was Thompson. I think it was Elizabeth Thompson. It's so funny to remember these names. And so we're doing the recording. Then we go back. We get in my Jeep, and we're sitting there. We typically would never listen to the tapes until we got back to one of our homes because we didn't want to freak ourselves out. Nope. Dave and I have become true ghost hunters. We were experienced now. We were going to listen to the tape right there on site. And we get to where we're talking about Elizabeth Thompson's grave. There's 2 of those growls, and it scared us. It scared us so bad. I flew the microcassette recorder in the back, and I went to start the Jeep, and I'm not joking, would not start. It wouldn't start. It was like something. It was like it wouldn't turn over. It was like wow, 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 wow. Like, and the lights are clicking, and Dave's screaming out, like, "Can I start the car?" He's like freaking out. I couldn't get the car started. I'm screaming, and it's like something was messing with the electric. I know it sounds corny, but the Jeep wouldn't start. Finally, after so many times, it fired up, and then we got the hell out of there. But I'm like, what the? It's just, I've never seen my Jeep had never reacted like that. It was like something electrical because the headlights were doing that clink, clink, clink. And this is an old seat, like 1984 CJ7. This thing would not want to turn over. And that was pretty much it for us. We actually never went out again.
Really?
That scared us. No, that scared us. That really scared us. And of course, my mom was like, I can't believe you're going to bring demons into this house.
You have them within you. Here I am cracking up. That scared you guys so bad you didn't go out ghost hunting again. Now I feel like an asshole. I was dying laughing.
Oh, no. It is. I mean, I would totally go out again tomorrow. But within like a month and a half later, I was gone in the Marine Corps, and then that opportunity was gone anyway. But we never. But in the month and a half before I went in the Marine Corps, we never went out again. We're like, that's enough. We've experienced enough of that. Yeah, that wouldn't really freak us out.
I mean, do you ever consider, going out in and around where you are? And I mean, obviously San Diego's got lots of history like that and ghosty stuff. I mean, do you ever think about taking it back up again? Not that you don't have enough to do.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything to do.
No. I mean, we're constantly slacking these days.
Yeah, I know. We're such losers.
Yeah.
No, I have considered it, but I mean, I don't know if I think I'd want to do it with somebody that also had the same similar interest. I think that's what made it kind of fun. You had an enjoyment level of doing it with Dave, because then we'd sit back and we'd banter about it, whatever, and that kind of thing. Like doing it with somebody, then it like we actually, I wouldn't even call it an investigation because I'm not a researcher or anything, but it would just be fun to go out and it's more about the experience for me. I don't necessarily would say I'm into an investigation to determine anything. I think I just want to have that experience again. But it wouldn't have anything to do with me like believing anymore. I'm definitely highly skeptical on a lot of things. When it comes to that, my experiences are so there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
There's a spirit world. There are things out there. I don't know where they're coming from. Maybe it's interdimensional, whatever that is, but there are spirits in the world and we're in constant contact with them all the time. There's no doubt in my mind. Absolute 100% believer.
So have you because you have a very large fan base, and obviously you live in, and I'm not going to say it because if I say it that third time, I'm going to screw it up. You live in the genres you live in. There we go. And I mean, with your interest though in the paranormal, have you ever thought about delving into paranormal fiction or horror, more like straight horror fiction?
I have thought about doing straight horror. I do like horror, but actually personally, I enjoy watching it. My youngest daughter also loves it too. So that's something her and I we do together. We watched all that. I have her, she's 10 and we've watched all the worst movies. I'm a horrible parent, but I mean, not like House of a Thousand Corpses. I'll wait till she's 11. But,
at least 11. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At least 11. But, yeah, my wife killed me. She's like, you had to watch Chucky, or was it no Child's Play?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one, though. See, but I think more of it for me as a parent, and this is maybe mothers and daughters are different, or just having a daughter is different. But what bothers me more about some of the horror stuff is not the gore or anything, but it's the sexual element that's always in horror movies. I think that's what makes me more hesitant to show it to my daughter, which is so. I mean, you don't mind the head being cut off, but you mind the like half nude sex scene. You know, it doesn't make any sense, maybe, but that's where my mind goes.
No, I'm right with you on that. I'm right with you on that. I could care less about the violence.
Yeah, bring on the violence. That's great. Slash that mofo right open. But once they start in with the other stuff, I'm like, all right, let's just fast forward this. That's where
it
my
always
mind
seems
is.
like it's the B movies, right? Is it the
Right.
B horror movies that
God.
have if it's a horror movie, it has actors you've never heard of,
Yep.
and they're all in their like early 20s.
And they're all half
That's the
naked, like
ones that have
half
all
the
the
time.
sex.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's always
exactly.
the girl, like, just in the tidy whities and nothing else, like running around. It was like that commercial where they're running from the guy that's trying to kill them, and they're always running like into the room with the chainsaws or whatever. You're like,
Yeah.
that's exactly how it is.
I'd love to go back and what's the origin of that kind of horror movie? Is it Halloween? Is it John Carpenter that created that kind of? We have the
Right.
teens, the high schoolers, and you
Right.
have a lot of. If you watch the original Halloween, there's the sex scenes in that.
Yep.
You have that. You have what's her name running around her little tidy whitey, that kind of thing. That's in that movie. Yeah, I think that might be one of the first that had that kind of where you're mashing those two elements together, right? You're bringing sex
Yeah.
and horror, putting it together.
And then like it's I can't remember which one this would be. It's one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres. There was like that necrophilia element to it. I'm like, oh my good God, and I get it, and even we both love Rob Zombie. He's got a lot of elements of that in there too. So not as heavy as others, but it's certainly there. And especially in something like Devil's Rejects. So, but anyway, before we get off of this though, you mentioned, you like with the kiddos like to watch horror stuff, but you and Savannah, your daughter Savannah, actually, you guys worked on a horror novella together titled The Doll, right?
Yeah. So, I am interested in writing horror. I do enjoy it. In fact, so her and I wrote a book. It was her idea. She literally had this like very lucid dream about it. And I was taking her to this running club event, and she was like, Dad, I want to tell you all about it. And she was telling me this plot. And it wasn't like she had a dream and she told me like 20 seconds and that's all she remembered. It was like she was going on in very in detailed fashion about this story about this possessed doll. And as I'm listening, the way my mind works, I'm like, this is the plot of a great book. And so from that, I'm like, let's write this, let's make this into a book. Let's work on it together. And so she was the one who fed, the plot and gave me the ideas. I was kind of like her ghostwriter, and she did do some lifting on that department as well. But it's I think a very entertaining, very creepy story about a possessed and animated doll.
I will make sure to link that in this episode show notes for everybody. How close to her actual dream did you guys, stick to as far as the printing of the book?
It's a great question. It's in order for it to work, I thought, so we did make some deviations from it, and that's because where my thinking was to turn it into some kind of a series for her that we can expand on. I always like creating something we can build off of, and so there was definitely some changes. But the overall theme of this doll being in this house, being found, is definitely an element that's definitely throughout the book. So her dream is still in there without a doubt.
That's awesome. That's a great tandem project and something you guys will remember forever, executing together. That's awesome.
I love horror, though. I love horror because there was another book I did called Mother. And that's where I took a post-apocalyptic story about I did it as a partnership with Nicholas Sansbury Smith, New York Times guy. He wrote this one series called Extinction Cycle. It's essentially about a mutated virus, right? It turns people into some kind of, mutants, right? It's pretty close to like zombie kind of stuff, but it's not The Walking Dead, not people that are dead. It's just people that are mutated into some kind of, things. And so he ended up wanted to create this collaboration. And so he invited me to write into his universe, but I didn't want to write the typical story that a lot of these other writers were doing. there's a lot of heavy military fighting these mutants, right? And most of his books. And a lot of other contributing authors were doing that same story. Like, no. I want to do something that's really creepy as hell. Said, I'll put this in the middle of nowhere on a farm, and 2 people escape this thing, and they end up on a farm, and there's just 2 identical twins there.
Oh.
And so the story is about these guys who encounter this house that has all these supplies, and the only inhabitants are these 2 12-year-old girls. And one's a mute, has to walk around with like a chalkboard. That's how she communicates.
Oh, nice.
But there's a very creepy, weird horror element to the story.
No, wait, this is something that's embedded in another like series of like a bigger book that's got a number of authors in it?
Yeah, so there's one called Missions from the Extinction Cycle. You can find that's where the original story of Mother is. But I also took it and I expanded it a little bit more, turned it into, it's more of a, it's greater than a novella. It's like it's pretty much it's right on the cusp of being a novel as far as in length. And I called it Detour. So if the listeners wanted to pick up, I actually title it Detour, a post-apocalyptic horror story, because it's a horror story that's taking place in an apocalyptic universe.
Nice. For links, guys, check the show notes for that. And of course, I'm sure everyone's going to go, of course, Geoff needs to write some horror stuff for us, paranormal. Don't worry, guys. I'll send him a Ouija board, get him right back into this stuff. Don't worry. I'll go send you a glow-in-the-dark one, no problem. So when the lights go out, you could still use the Ouija board.
No.
Growl, insert growl here, bro.
No.
You do have those cassettes still? The EVPs?
I do. I just need to know how to, it's not a matter of just not getting, I just need to find someone that just, I'm assuming if I take those tapes and gave them to somebody that has the technology, they could like convert it into a digital format without losing that. I'm assuming that's real, right? You can do that, right?
I think so.
Yeah, no, I don't.
If anyone knows anything about that, email us, Beyond the Fray LLC @gmail.com.
And like, so I have the like the mini cassettes or micro cassettes, what they were called, but my micro cassette player just is trash now. So
right.
And so have you seen the prices of those? Like I looked at them on Amazon. Like I'll buy another one. How much can they be? $20? Like $300. I'm like, what?
Oh God.
How the hell can a micro cassette player cost $300?
It's because it's a cryptid.
They clearly don't make them anymore.
Yeah, it's a cryptid. It's like I used to have the old hideous puke colored or diarrhea colored rotary phone. I should have never thrown that thing away. People are selling those on eBay for a few $100s. The old school rotaries that still have the cord to them. So all these things they're dying. You can't find them anymore. I just got tired of lugging it around. I was a pack rat for a long time. I'm better about it now, but my God, or the old school actual metal Tonka dump trucks and stuff, the really big ones.
Yeah.
I lugged that thing around for years and finally threw it away. And now I'm like, damn it, why in the hell would I get rid of that? That thing was badass. And, if I ever got really down and out, I could probably sell it for a few bucks. It was beat up, but boy, that thing, it really was a Tonka truck.
Toys are, I had one of those too. We loved them. There's like the metal ones when I was a kid. That's what we had too.
All yellow.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you, the toys, like the retro toys like we grew up with, are big hot items.
Yeah.
And I still have like my old Star Wars collection, like the old figures and whatnot from back like the late 70s and the early mid 80s. I was lugging that stuff around. So I didn't throw them away. I just posted something on Craigslist. This was years ago. Man, I had people coming out of the woodwork. I think I sold it like the entire collection for like almost $1,000. It was crazy.
I lost some stuff in the move from here to Ohio that would just still breaks my heart to this day. Like I used to have the original He-Man with his Thundercat, and that got lost in the move. Isn't that sad that like that's the thing that I gravitate towards? But that, I was more of I'm sure folks could guess, I'm a little bit of a tomboy, and I was when I was growing up. And, I did have Barbies, but I also loved to play with cars and G.I. Joes and He-Man, and I had the Battle Cat and all that stuff. Not Thundercat. That Thundercat's a separate thing, but the Battle Cat, the green badass Battle Cat, I still had that. I had the damn saddle and everything for He-Man to ride him, and he gone. God damn it.
What was that stretchy guy?
Oh.
Remember the one?
Stretch Armstrong.
His body?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you still have yours?
No, it's long gone. But I remember having Stretch Armstrong.
Hell yeah. I wonder if I wonder though, how bad to the bone those are still to this day, if people still have them, because things dry out and they crack and stuff. Like, if you really stretch it, do you really want to be that ballsy and try it, or is he just going to snap,
I would imagine it would probably have degraded over time.
Yeah.
So you probably wouldn't want to, even if it's like preserved in like a mint condition. I mean, stuff just degrades.
Yeah. Of course, they don't make toys like they used to either. Maybe it wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, like the Tonka trucks.
Oh,
those things were like hardy.
A lot of the paint had chipped off, the yellow paint from the actual bed. So it was the metal under, because it was actually metal. They don't make stuff like that anymore, but you could see the rust underneath. But boy, I still think about that. I'm like, why did I get rid of that? It was very cumbersome to move with that goddamn thing. But now when I look back, I'm like, I should have hung on to that, because that was when me and my brother were really, really little, playing with stuff like that. I mean, I think there was the dump truck, and then you had the like more of a tractor situation. I can't remember all of them, but that was the one that I had lugged around for years, is that damn dump truck.
Yeah, I had a dump truck. I think my cousin had a dump truck in it. I think it was like a front end loader or something. Might have been that. But he had like a tractor looking thing too.
That's what it would be, not a tractor. It's a front end loader. Yeah, I have to get.
Was that what it was?
People in construction are like, it's not a tractor. It's not a effing farm, woman. Front end loader. See, we know our terms around these parts. And now
I don't even know if that's right either.
We've totally digressed, and people are like, "Wow, thanks for all the information on the toys you guys used to have." You're welcome, people. No, all right. So let everybody know where they can find you, Geoff.
The best place is to go to gmichaelhopf.com. That's gmichaelhopf.com, and links to all my books, 38 of them I think today, are all there, from apocalyptic fiction, Western fiction, etc., or can be found on there, as well as just facebook.com/gmichaelhopf. Social media, I interact a lot with people, fans, whatnot. And again, if anybody out there has got an incredible story, whether it's in the paranormal, even apocalyptic, that's what Doomsday Press is. Mm-hmm. We are publishing those books. So if you've got a story idea, you've got a book written, you can submit it to us for publishing, and we'll see what we can do with it. Something to note on that: we are we do it all kind of a publishing house. This isn't kind of a vanity press. We're not going to charge you to publish your book. This is not a fee service kind of a thing. We are an actual full service publishing house, so we will take care of all the expenses to get your book out there. So if you've got that book written, whether it's in the paranormal, true crime, or apocalyptic or dystopian fiction, come and look at us. I think go to doomsdaybooks.com for Doomsday Press, and then Beyond the Fray Publishing.com for your paranormal books. Absolutely.
And again, guys, fiction and nonfiction we are looking at for all of the genres that Geoff just mentioned. So please get in touch with us. And there is, like you said, on both of those websites, there are submission forms for you guys to utilize. And of course, any questions, you can just you can email us, info@beyondthefraypublishing.com or beyondthefrayllc@gmail.com. Was I correct there in that, I think, G?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
All right.
That's it.
Well, that was your introduction with you guys and Geoff. I will certainly have him back on, in the coming months when we have more announcements. But again, take a look on Amazon right now. Paramalgamation is up for pre-order, and get us some UFO stories. I want to talk to you guys. I would rather interview people, of course. It can be for the show or not. But hey, if you don't feel like chatting with me, then again, just send the stories in or record them yourselves. We are looking for those now. Well, Geoff, thank you for your time. I'm sure I'll be speaking to you in the next few hours about something or other anyway, but thanks for coming on Into the Fray finally.
Well, no, I appreciate it, Shannon. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam. By the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. When you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on. You are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, "Now get up and walk across the room." And he comes back and he says, "Where are your footprints?" They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.